Greetings. I'm Reverend Kimberly G. Walker, pastor of the Bold Springs Christian Methodist Episcopal Church of Jackson, Georgia. And I want to talk to you about whether or not Christians should celebrate Halloween. Usually around this time of year, there's a lot of angst, perhaps with some Christians, around the celebration of Halloween because of its emphasis on the occult. A celebration of ghouls and ghosts and goblins and witches and witchcraft and black magic, and this association with things that are dead, like skeletons and skulls. And there's also this tie-in to satanic worship as well. So, in lieu of kind of disassociating themselves from the themes around Halloween, Christians and churches have started having these Hallelujah festivals and harvest festivals and trunk or treat as opposed to trick or treat. And so there's just a lot of misinformation also too around Halloween and its origins. And so I want to take it back a little bit and look at how we got to where we are right now. If you look at the etymology of the word Halloween, it is derived from what we call All Hallows Eve. All Hallows, Hallow, Eve, All Hallows Eve. Hallow meaning to be made holy or to be made saintly. For example, when we say in the Lord's Prayer, hallowed be thy name, hallowed meaning that we venerate you, we canonize you, we lift you up, we make God's name itself holy and saintly. So when we look at this holiday, All Saints Day, which occurs on November 1st, that is a commemoration of persons that have been elevated to the sainthood within Roman Catholic as well as some other Christian denominations. And so persons that have been quote unquote canonized to or elevated to the sainthood, then those persons are recognized on All Saints Day. But also within some Christian communities, people not only just do what the faith tradition or the church recognizes as saints, but also persons that who are important in their communities, persons that were important in their families. Those persons are also lifted up on All Saints Day. And it's a common practice, particularly now, where we light a candle in memory of someone, or, we have some type of candlelight vigil in memory of someone. And so All Saints Day sort of kind of reverberates around that particular principle. And so within Protestant traditions, we also celebrate All Saints Day within some capacities, usually uplifting. We don't have necessarily saints in the traditional sense, but persons of note like a Martin Luther or John Wesley, who is the founder of Methodism, or the Apostle Paul, or those kinds of persons certainly will be recognized on an All Saints Day, as well as persons within persons' families and their communities. And so when we have all these All Saints Day commemorations, typically began with an eve, as with most of our holidays. For example, we have New Year's Eve and Christmas Eve. And so the celebration would actually begin the day before the actual holiday. And so that's why we have All Hallows Eve. Hallows Eve, Halloween, you see how we got there. And so as with most of our holidays, which have both what we call pagan origins as well as Christian origins, we have within Halloween the same thing. In fact, there is more association with a Christian origin more so than a pagan origin, or what we deem the occult in modern times. There are some Celtic rituals that are also associated, Celtic, that associated with the origins of Halloween as well. And so as you see European settlers come to the Americas in fleeing religious persecution in Europe in the Middle Ages and settle in America, we see kind of this conflation of things that they brought over, things that they found when they got here, and then we end up with the holidays that we have. If somebody does something, then someone adds it on, and so forth. And so even as certain holidays then become commercialized and they become part of our advertising strategies, become part of our retail strategy. We start selling costumes, and we start selling pumpkin spice, and we start selling, carving pumpkins and having these huge pumpkin carving rituals. And so those kinds of things kind of evolve over time as well. It's not too far a leap when you think about it. When you're talking about saints, we're talking about, people who have gone on, people who departed, people who are dead. Ghosts are spirit beings that are no longer in their physical form. So you can see how those two things have been conflated, but then, it just sort of, Halloween just kind of morphed into this whole notion of dressing up and going around and getting candy for trick or treat. And also you see persons who intend to do harm will co-opt the holiday for their own personal preferences as well. So yes, there are certain folks who claim satanic rituals will co-opt this holiday and use this holiday for that purpose as well. But let's just kind of stick to whether or not Christians should do it. Now, on the face of it, Halloween is a pretty benign holidays, especially for children. A child dressing up as a princess or their favorite superhero or the Black Panther or something like that, that doesn't seem to be anything wrong with that in particular. So of course, certain faith traditions have things against that kind of thing. But, dressing up as your Disney character or cartoon character, there's nothing really, on the surface of it, on the face of it, nothing really wrong with it. So, but now there's a lot of misinformation around the origins of Halloween. And I want to kind of set the record straight on that. And so when we have our All Saints Day commemorations, and that began on All Hallows Eve, that is what Halloween, for the most part, has been derived from. And so it's important that we kind of set the record straight around, what is the intent? Is dressing up for fun? Is it for revelry? Is it, get an opportunity to have fellowship? And of course, now that we're in the times of this global pandemic, we're kind of restricted as to how we gather and how much we can gather. But certainly, even before this, just for the safety of children, people have, kind of had their own Halloween parties, have had their own, hallelujah festivals and things like that, so that children can, and adults too, can enjoy the idea of dressing up and having fun and, having candy and eating all the chocolate you want for the sake of just being a very kind of a fun, benign holiday. But I want to make sure that we kind of rescue Halloween from just this default that is automatically a holiday of Satan or a holiday of the devil, and look at really its Christian origins. October 31st also is a significant day within Protestant traditions because it is actually the beginning of the Reformation. Martin Luther, who was a German monk who taught a professor of theology at the University of Wittenberg in Germany, had some issues with Pope Leo and the Catholic Church in his time. So on October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther put on, I don't think it was coincidental, on the door of a church called the All Saints Church, his 95 theses or his 95 grievances on what he felt that the church was doing as an impediment to Christian believers. And these involved indulgences that people had to purchase in order to atone for their sins, in order to get right with a right standing, in order to kind of prepare themselves for heaven. And so there was this notion around buying your way into heaven, and clergy selling this for the sake of profit and profiting from these indulgences, that they would make people or buy these things, and people felt that, if they, could not purchase these things, they could not, properly atone for whatever sins they think they have committed. And so Martin Luther, in publishing these theses, really was the beginning of the Reformation, or the Protestant Reformation as we know it. Starts with this very radical act. We see you will see throughout church history where protest, not unlike the protest that we're having within our communities right now, there is a protest or a grievance, and as a result, there tends to be a movement that happens as a result. In this case, the act of Martin Luther, and again, this is not to be confused with Martin Luther King. We're talking about 1517. That is who Martin Luther King was named after. There was this kind of rewriting of, and then later a separation from the Roman Catholic Church, which was the dominant church, as well as there were also Orthodox churches as well, but the dominant church at the time. And so then, of course, without kind of speeding this thing up a little bit, from the Protestant Reformation, we get some of the Protestant denominations that are observed today. Of course, the Lutheran Church is of course named after Martin Luther. Some of your Calvinist denominations are also derived from the teachings of Martin Luther. And so we have now Halloween. So what do we do with it? Well, it's important that you as a family, as also in consultation with your own leaders of your faith community, make this personal decision as to whether or not it is something that keeps you from being holy. I'm of the opinion, if your intention is good and it is you're not doing this as a means of harming people or harming yourself, then there's nothing wrong with it. But of course, that's just, if you ask Pastor Kim, that's my take on it. I think that we need to kind of rescue Halloween away from this notion that it is rooted in satanic rituals, but in fact, it does have a Christian origin to it, as well as some Celtic origins as well. And pumpkins in particular, when you think about it, this you see kind of this celebration of the harvest. It happens in fall, it happens in late fall. There's crops and the harvesting of crops and things like that. And so it doesn't, having, festivals around harvesting of a crop or celebrating and being grateful for the bounty that happens as a result of a harvest. That many societies have those kinds of rituals, and Halloween is a derivative of that type of ritual. So you have to make a decision for yourself, again, as a person, hopefully has agency and who is free to decide whether or not this is something you want to do. But I think that we have to be careful not to shame and guilt people because they decide that they want to say Halloween there. And as I explained to you, there's nothing evil about the word. It has a Christian origin in that Hallows Eve, hallow meaning saint. So let's kind of, stop just kind of making up things and talking about, looking at, what these practices are. Again, it's now a commercialized holiday, but for Christians, it's also an opportunity to lift up those persons who have gone on to glory, and we want to commemorate and acknowledge their memory as well. And so hopefully I have provided some clarity on Halloween, and hopefully have kind of diminished some of the conflict around some persons who feel like, this is in conflict with your particular faith if you're a Christian, and to tell you that it is not, and that the Halloween holiday itself has both Christian as well as some pagan origins, and has a historical significance to the church because it is the beginning of the Protestant Reformation. I hope that helps. And if you have any other questions, please feel free. I'm going to upload this video. You can share with your communities if you so choose. And if this has been a helpful teaching for you, you can certainly join my faith community at the Bold Springs Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. We have a Facebook page as well as YouTube page as well, and you can join us for our Bible studies as well as our worship services on the second and fourth Sunday. Well, take care. This has been Ask Pastor Kim. God bless and have a wonderful day.